When you carry yourself with a certain standard, people notice, especially men. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned through how you move, speak, and enforce your limits. The first boundary is valuing your own time. If someone is constantly late, distracted, or inconsistent, you don't adjust your life to fit theirs. You let your consistency be the standard, and those who can't match it either level up or fade away. Time is the one thing you never get back, so the message is clear: if you waste mine, you don't get more of it. The second boundary is your emotional space. You don't let anyone treat you like an emotional punching bag, no matter how stressed they are. When someone speaks to you in a way that's demeaning, you don't match their tone or get pulled into their chaos. You stay calm, firm, and disengage if needed. Over time, people learn you're not someone to unload on or disrespect. The third boundary is what you tolerate in behavior. Small disrespect grows into big disrespect when unchecked. If a joke crosses the line, if a comment feels off, you call it out in the moment. Not aggressively, just with a tone and look that makes it clear you noticed and won't allow it again. People respect those who set the line early and keep it there. The fourth boundary is self-respect in relationships. You don't over-give, over-share, or over-extend yourself just to earn approval. You give as much as is matched, and you let reciprocity be the measure of closeness. This keeps you from being taken for granted and shows others that your presence is earned, not owed. The fifth boundary is physical and mental autonomy. No one decides for you where you go, what you do, or what you believe. You listen, you consider, but your choices remain yours. That independence sends a signal that you are a whole person, not someone to be controlled, managed, or molded. In the end, people respect what they can't easily manipulate. Time is the one currency you can never earn back. Once it's gone for good. And yet, so many people give it away freely to those who have done nothing to deserve it. They allow lateness, excuses, and inconsistencies to chip away at their schedule and, in doing so, send a message, a silent permission slip, that their time isn't worth much. The truth is, the way you treat your own time teaches people how to treat you. If you show up promptly, stay committed, and structure your day with purpose, but you allow someone else to constantly show up late or cancel without notice, you're not just inconvenienced, you're lowering your own standard. Valuing your time starts with recognizing its weight. You have a finite number of hours in the day, and if you let someone take those hours for granted, they'll begin to take you for granted as well. People respect those who are consistent, but they also respect those who don't bend over backwards to accommodate bad habits. Think about it: if someone knows they can be 10, 20, 30 minutes late to meet you, and you'll still be there smiling, waiting, they've learned there's no cost to disrespecting your schedule. Over time, they stop seeing your time as valuable because you've shown them it isn't valuable to you. When you draw a firm line with your schedule, you are sending a message that ripples far beyond the clock. It says, I run my life doesn't run me. It says you understand that time wasted is opportunity lost. And it forces others to make a choice, meet you at your level, or step aside for those who will. This is not about being rigid or unkind. It's about maintaining a structure that protects your priorities. It's easy to fall into the trap of making excuses for people. They're just busy. They didn't mean it. It's not a big deal. But if it keeps happening, it is a big deal. Chronic lateness or lack of commitment is a form of disrespect. Not always malicious, but disrespect nonetheless. And disrespect that goes unchecked becomes the norm. People don't suddenly wake up one day and start treating you better. They adjust to the standard you set from day one. Valuing your time also means being selective about where you invest it. If you spend hours with people who drain your energy, distract you from your goals, or contribute nothing of value, you're not just wasting time. You're robbing your future self. Every minute you give away to the wrong people or activities is a minute stolen from what you could have been building, learning, or enjoying. Those who truly respect you won't expect you to put your life on hold for their convenience. They'll meet you halfway because they see the worth of your presence. Enforcing this boundary takes courage, especially if you're someone who has been conditioned to accommodate others. It might mean saying no to last-minute invitations, ending conversations that drag on aimlessly, or even walking away from relationships where your time is consistently disrespected. And yes, people might be offended at first. They might accuse you of being too busy or too rigid. But the people worth keeping in your life will eventually understand and respect your boundary. The ones who don't were never aligned with you to begin with. Your consistency is also part of the equation. You can't demand punctuality and commitment from others if you don't hold yourself to the same standard. If you show up late, cancel plans without notice, or make commitments you can't keep, you've undermined your own authority. Respect starts with self-discipline. When you're reliable, you naturally inspire reliability in others. And when you pair that reliability with firm boundaries, you become someone people think twice about disappointing. The beauty of valuing your time is that it quietly elevates the quality of your life. You start to notice who actually aligns with your standards. The ones who arrive on time, who follow through, who show up prepared. These are the people who understand respect. They see your time as a privilege, not an entitlement. And because they do, you can build deeper, more productive, and more meaningful relationships with them. Protecting your time is not selfish, it's strategic. Every moment you save from being wasted is a moment you can invest in your health, your goals, your growth, and the people who truly value you. And when others see that you won't compromise on this, they're forced to step up or step aside. That's when respect happens. It's not about demanding it. It's about living in a way that makes it the only logical response. By holding this line, you're not just managing your schedule, you're shaping your life. You're telling the world, without ever saying a word, that you know your worth. And people respect those who know their worth because it makes them realize they can't waste your time. They have to earn it. And earning something is always more powerful than having it handed to you. Your emotional space is one of the most valuable assets you have, yet most people protect it far less than they protect their physical possessions. You wouldn't hand a stranger the keys to your home and tell them to come and go as they please, but many people give others unlimited access to their emotions. They allow moods, tempers, and negativity from others to spill over into their own mental state. When you let someone speak to you in a demeaning way, unload their frustrations on you, or manipulate you into reacting, you give them control over something they should never own, your inner calm. The truth is, not everyone who crosses your path will handle stress or conflict in a healthy way. Some will lash out, not because of anything you did, but because they need an outlet for their own tension. If you've trained yourself to be the person who absorbs it, they will come to you over and over. That doesn't make you a kind-hearted listener, it makes you a convenient target. And over time, constant exposure to this kind of emotional dumping wears you down. You start to carry other people's problems as if they're your own, and your mind becomes cluttered with energy that was never yours to bear. The first step in protecting your emotional space is learning to recognize when someone is trying to pull you into their storm. They might raise their voice, use condescending language, or constantly redirect every conversation back to their complaints and frustrations. In those moments, your instinct might be to match their energy, to argue back, to defend yourself, to fix their mood. But the more you react, the more you feed the situation. This is exactly how people lose respect for your boundaries. They realize they can push your buttons and control how you feel. The power move is to remain calm and refuse to be baited. This doesn't mean you're passive or that you tolerate mistreatment. It means you control your reactions with precision. You can firmly state, "I'm not going to have this conversation with you while you're speaking to me like that," and then disengage. You don't slam doors. You don't yell. You don't get drawn into emotional theatrics. You maintain your composure like a locked vault, because the moment you lose it, you've handed over the keys. Some people will accuse you of being cold or unfeeling when you stop allowing them to use you as an emotional dumping ground. That's because They've been benefiting from your lack of boundaries. They're used to getting instant validation, attention, or a reaction from you, and when you take that away, they feel the loss. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect your own peace so you can show up in the world as your best self. It's also important to recognize that protecting your emotional space isn't just about blocking out negative people. It's about choosing what and who you allow in. Surrounding yourself with those who speak with respect, handle disagreements maturely, and bring more positivity than chaos into your life is just as crucial as cutting off those who drain you. Respect isn't just earned through strength, it's maintained through discernment. When people see that you don't tolerate toxic behavior, they either adjust how they interact with you or remove themselves entirely. Either outcome works in your favor. Another layer to this boundary is emotional self-awareness. You have to know your own triggers and weaknesses so you can guard against manipulation. If you know that certain topics, tones, or behaviors tend to make you angry or defensive, you can prepare for those moments in advance. Instead of reacting instantly, you create a pause between stimulus and response. That pause is where your power lies. Most people give away their emotional control because they respond without thinking. When you take even a few seconds to breathe, assess, and choose your words, you're operating from a place of strength rather than impulse. Over time, protecting your emotional space trains others to interact with you differently. Those who once raised their voice around you will find themselves lowering it. Those who once made cutting remarks will realize they get no reaction from you, and therefore no reward. Those who once came to you with every crisis will start to solve their own problems because you've stopped carrying them. The shift is gradual, but it's powerful. You move from being someone people unload on to someone people approach with respect and intention. One of the most valuable benefits of enforcing this boundary is clarity. When you remove the noise of other people's drama from your mind, you start thinking more clearly. You make better decisions because you're no longer reacting based on someone else's urgency or emotional chaos. You have more energy for the things that matter to you because you're not constantly drained by things that don't. And because you operate with more calm and focus, you naturally command more respect from those around you. This isn't about shutting people out or refusing to help those in need. It's about recognizing the difference between helping and being used, between listening and absorbing, between empathy and self-sacrifice. You can be compassionate without being a sponge for negativity. You can be understanding without being a target for emotional abuse. And the people who are worth having in your life will appreciate the balance. They'll see that your calm isn't detachment. It's discipline. And discipline is always respected, especially in a world where most people are slaves to their impulses. Protecting your emotional space is a form of self-respect that doesn't require you to explain yourself. You don't have to justify why you won't engage in heated arguments or tolerate disrespect. You don't have to defend your choice to walk away from someone who's crossing a line. The act itself, the quiet, unshakable decision to protect your inner peace, speaks louder than any words could. And that silence, that unwavering calm, is what earns lasting respect. Small acts of disrespect are like cracks in a foundation. At first, they seem minor, almost harmless. A sarcastic remark brushed off as a joke. A comment that makes you pause for a moment, but then you laugh along to avoid awkwardness. But when you allow those small cracks to remain, they widen over time. And what was once tolerable becomes the new standard. People rarely start with blatant disrespect. They test the waters, seeing how much they can get away with. If you let those early moments slide, you've given silent permission for them to push further. The key is to set the tone early. When someone makes a comment or a joke that crosses the line, you don't have to explode or launch into a lecture. You simply make it clear, in real time, that it's not acceptable. Sometimes that's as simple as a pause, a look, or a calm, direct statement like, "Don't talk to me like that." The delivery matters as much as the words. You don't need to match their disrespect with aggression. In fact, staying composed while calling it out is far more powerful. It sends a message that you're in control, you notice the behavior, and you won't allow it to become normal. Many people avoid addressing small acts of disrespect because they don't want to seem overly sensitive or confrontational. But that fear of making it a big deal is exactly how disrespect grows unchecked. If someone crosses a boundary and you say nothing, they assume it's fine. They might even assume you didn't notice. Either way, silence is taken as consent. And once someone learns that you'll tolerate the small stuff, they feel freer to push further. What was once a sarcastic comment becomes a habit of talking down to you. What was once mild teasing turns into outright belittling. The danger is that, over time, you may start to adapt to this behavior without realizing it. You get used to hearing certain comments or being treated a certain way. It becomes part of the relationship dynamic, whether it's with a friend, partner, colleague, or family member. And once it's ingrained, it's harder to change because you've already trained them to think it's acceptable. That's why it's far easier to address disrespect in its earliest stages than to try to reverse it later. Calling out disrespect doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes the most effective way is through calm, confident energy. If someone says something out of line, you don't laugh to make them comfortable. You let the moment hang. People feel the weight of silence. Or you redirect the conversation without giving their comment attention, signaling that it's not worth engaging with. The key is consistency. If you only enforce your boundaries occasionally, people will test you more often to see when you'll let it slide. But if you address it every time, they learn quickly that disrespect is a dead end with you. It's also important to remember that people treat you based on the standard you set for yourself. If you talk about yourself in a self-deprecating way, constantly putting yourself down, you're giving others a script to follow. They may feel comfortable joking about you in ways that cross the line because you've shown them it's acceptable. That's why self-respect is the foundation for setting external boundaries. When you respect yourself, it feels unnatural to let others speak to you in ways that don't match that respect. There will be moments when addressing disrespect makes people uncomfortable. And that's fine. You're not responsible for their discomfort. You're responsible for your own dignity. Some will apologize immediately because they didn't realize they crossed a line. Others might get defensive, claiming you're overreacting. That's not your problem. You're not enforcing your boundaries for their approval. You're doing it to maintain the environment you need to thrive. When you make it a habit to confront small acts of disrespect, you'll notice something powerful. People start to adjust their behavior around you. They think twice before making certain comments. They become more mindful of their tone. Even those who aren't naturally respectful learn to be, because they realize there's no reward for crossing the line. This creates a ripple effect. Others see how you're treated and understand that you're not someone to joke at the expense of or speak down to. Some people will test your boundaries repeatedly, not because they're unaware, but because they want to see if you'll eventually bend. That's where consistency becomes your greatest weapon. The more often you hold your ground, the quicker they realize you're serious. Eventually, those who can't respect you will distance themselves. And that's a blessing. It makes space for people who truly value you and interact with you in ways that uplift rather than diminish. You'll also find that your own sense of self-worth grows when you stop tolerating small disrespect. Each time you address it, you reinforce the idea to yourself that you matter, that your presence isn't to be taken lightly, and that inner shift changes how you carry yourself. Straighter posture, steadier voice, more confident eye contact. That energy communicates respect before you even speak, which often prevents disrespect from happening in the first place. The bottom line is this: the small things matter. The quick comments, the side jokes, the subtle tones, they all add up to either respect or disrespect. When you let the little things slide, you're building a foundation for bigger problems. When you address them immediately, you're building a foundation for lasting respect. And the sooner you make that your habit, the less you'll have to fight for it later. Self-respect in relationships begins with understanding that your value does not come from how much you give, how much you sacrifice, or how much you bend to make others happy. Many people fall into the trap of over-giving because they believe it will earn love, loyalty, or admiration. They pour endless time, energy, and resources into others, hoping that their generosity will be reciprocated. But over time, this often leads to the opposite. Instead of appreciation, it breeds complacency. People start to expect what you give without realizing the cost to you. Your effort becomes invisible, and instead of earning respect, you find yourself taken for granted. The problem with over-giving is that it shifts the balance of a relationship. When one person consistently gives more than they receive, the other person can become comfortable in a position where they never have to match the effort. They don't mean to devalue you. It happens slowly, almost unconsciously. But once the dynamic sets in, it's hard to reverse. That's why it's crucial to create a natural balance from the beginning. You give when there's reciprocity, and you measure closeness by mutual investment, not by how much you're willing to carry alone. This doesn't mean you stop being kind or generous. It means you give from a place of strength and choice, not from a place of obligation or fear of losing someone. When you set the standard that your energy and effort are valuable, people treat them as valuable. You're not available at all hours for every request. You don't cancel your priorities to accommodate someone else's last-minute needs, and you don't say yes to things that drain you just to avoid disappointing someone. The more you respect your own limits, the more others will respect them too. It's also about resisting the urge to prove your worth through constant action. If you feel the need to keep showing someone why you deserve their attention, you've already put yourself in a weaker position. Real respect comes when people value you for who you are, not just for what you do for them. If someone's affection or respect is conditional on how much you give, it's not genuine respect. It's transactional, and it will vanish the moment you stop over-delivering. Many people struggle with this boundary because they fear being seen as selfish. They've been taught that a good friend, partner, or family member is always available, always accommodating, always willing to sacrifice. But healthy relationships don't require you to diminish yourself. In fact, when you prioritize your own well-being and only give in a way that feels balanced, you actually strengthen relationships. The people in your life learn to appreciate you more because they know your time and energy are not infinite. They see that when you give, it's intentional and meaningful, not habitual and expected. There's also a deeper truth. When you give too much without receiving in return, resentment builds. You may tell yourself you're fine with it, but over time the imbalance wears you down. You start to notice the small ways others don't show up for you. You start to feel unappreciated, invisible, even used. And eventually, that resentment either erupts in conflict or quietly erodes the connection. Setting boundaries early prevents this cycle from taking root. One of the most effective ways to maintain self-respect in relationships is to observe how people respond when you set limits. If you say no to a request and someone reacts with anger, guilt, tripping, or withdrawal, that's not a sign you should give more. It's a sign they only valued you for your compliance. On the other hand, people who respect you will understand your boundaries. They might be disappointed in the moment, but they won't hold it against you. They know that relationships require give and take, not give and give. You also have to be mindful of the kind of energy you attract. If you present yourself as someone who will always say yes, you will draw people who seek to take advantage of that. When you present yourself as someone who values reciprocity, you attract people who operate the same way. This isn't about being guarded or distrustful. It's about being intentional with where and to whom you give your best. Another key element is learning to be comfortable with space. Some people over-give because they're afraid that if they pull back, the other person will lose interest. But if someone only sticks around because you're constantly giving, they were never really there for you in the first place. Letting there be space in a relationship allows you to see who comes toward you on their own and who disappears when the flow of benefits stops. That space often reveals the truth more clearly than words ever could. Self-respect in relationships isn't just about saying no to others. It's about saying yes to yourself. It's choosing to protect your energy, your time, and your emotional health, even when it's uncomfortable. It's recognizing that not every relationship deserves equal access to you. Some connections are worth deep investment, others are best kept at a distance. The difference lies in how much effort is reciprocated and how much respect is shown for your boundaries. When you live this way, you stop chasing people's approval. You stop needing to be the most generous, the most available, the most accommodating person in the room. Instead, you start to value your own presence as much as you hope others will. And the people who truly matter will rise to meet you there. They'll match your effort not because you demand it, but because they genuinely value the balance and mutual respect you bring to the table. In the end, your self-respect becomes a filter. It naturally keeps the wrong people out and strengthens your bond with the right ones. Those who stay will be the ones who don't just take from you, but who also give, not because they have to, but because they want to. That's the kind of respect that lasts, because it's built on equality, not on how much of yourself you're willing to give away. Your independence, both physical and mental, is one of the clearest signals that you are not someone to be controlled, manipulated, or molded to fit someone else's vision. When you maintain control over your choices, your movements, and your beliefs, you project an energy that commands respect without ever having to demand it. People quickly learn that while you may listen, consider, and even value their input, the final decision is always yours. That level of self-possession is rare, and it makes others think twice before trying to impose their will on you. Maintaining autonomy starts with being clear about what you want in your life. If you're uncertain about your goals, values, and priorities, it's easy for others to step in and steer you in directions that benefit them more than you. But when you know what matters to you, you have a strong internal compass. You can hear advice without feeling obligated to follow it. You can weigh opinions without being swayed by pressure. And you can make decisions with confidence, even if those decisions aren't popular or easily understood by those around you. It's not uncommon for people, consciously or not, to try to exert influence over you in subtle ways. They might question your decisions, make you second-guess yourself, or try to convince you that their way is the only way. This is where your mental independence becomes crucial. You don't need to argue endlessly to justify your choices. You don't need to seek permission for the path you take. You simply make your decision and stand by it. When others see that you are unshaken by doubt or criticism, they start to respect your resolve, even if they don't agree with you. Physical independence is just as important. This means not relying on others for basic needs or constantly waiting for someone else to take action before you do. The more you demonstrate that you can handle yourself, whether that's traveling alone, managing your finances, or solving your own problems, the more others see you as capable and self-sufficient. Independence in action shows that you're not looking for someone to save you, which changes the dynamic of how people treat you. They approach you as an equal, not as someone who needs to be led or taken care of. This doesn't mean you reject help or shut people out. True independence isn't about isolation. It's about having the ability to stand on your own while still welcoming collaboration when it aligns with your values. The key difference is that you choose when and how to accept help, rather than depending on it as a default. That choice preserves your dignity and reinforces the idea that you're in control of your life. Your independence also becomes a filter for the kinds of relationships you attract. People who are insecure or controlling often feel threatened by someone who can think and act for themselves. They may try to undermine your confidence, create dependency, or subtly make you feel guilty for not needing them. On the other hand, people who value equality and mutual respect will be drawn to your strength. They won't try to control you because they recognize you as a whole person, not a project to be fixed or shaped. Maintaining this autonomy requires self-discipline. It's easy to slip into patterns of letting others decide for you, especially when it seems easier or more convenient in the moment. But each time you hand over a decision that affects your life, you weaken your own authority. Over time, this can lead to a situation where you feel trapped by other people's expectations, unable to move freely without their approval. The only way to avoid this is to consistently practice making and standing by your own choices, even in small, everyday situations. Mental independence also means owning your beliefs. In a world where opinions are constantly pushed from every direction, it takes strength to think critically and form your own conclusions. This doesn't mean you reject every idea that isn't your own. It means you evaluate everything through the lens of your values and experiences. You're open to learning, but you're not easily swayed by trends, peer pressure, or fear of being different. People respect those who have the courage to hold their ground when everyone else is following the crowd. There will be times when your independence makes others uncomfortable. Some will interpret it as stubbornness, others might see it as arrogance. But those reactions say more about them than they do about you. Often, the discomfort comes from the fact that your autonomy forces them to confront their own lack of it. You become a mirror, showing them what it looks like to live without needing constant validation or approval. While not everyone will appreciate this, those who do will respect you deeply. Another powerful aspect of independence is the ability to walk away from situations that compromise your principles. When you know you can stand on your own, you're not trapped in unhealthy relationships, toxic workplaces, or environments that drain you. People sense when you have that freedom, and it changes how they deal with you. They know you're not bound to them by necessity. You're there by choice. And when someone realizes you're in their life because you want to be, not because you have to be, the respect that follows is genuine. Independence, at its core, is about choice. It's the freedom to decide your path, to act on your values, and to live without being defined by someone else's expectations. It requires strength, clarity, and a willingness to stand apart when necessary. And the more you embody it, the more you'll find that people don't just respect you. They look to you as an example of what it means to truly own your life. Respect is not something you can force out of people, and it's certainly not something that comes from intimidation or constant self-promotion. It's built in the quiet choices you make every day, in the boundaries you set, and in the way you carry yourself through both calm and challenging moments. Earning it is less about grand gestures and more about consistent action, showing that you value yourself, your time, your space, your principles, and your independence. Each of these boundaries is like a pillar, and when they're all in place, they create a structure so solid that others have no choice but to acknowledge and respect it. When you value your time, you teach others that it's precious. You stop allowing lateness, inconsistency, and disregard to chip away at your schedule. You show that your life is organized around purpose, not around accommodating those who can't meet your standard. People begin to match your punctuality, your effort, and your discipline because they know you won't bend endlessly to fit theirs. This creates mutual accountability. They respect your hours because you clearly respect them yourself. When you protect your emotional space, you show that your inner world is not a playground for someone else's temper or turmoil. You stop letting others dump their chaos into your mind and expect you to clean it up. You don't react to bait. You don't get pulled into unnecessary conflict. And you certainly don't tolerate being spoken to in a way that diminishes you. Over time, people learn that they have to bring their best selves to you because there's no reward for bringing anything less. When you address small acts of disrespect early, you make it clear that there's no safe entry point for bigger ones. You don't let offhand comments, subtle digs, or inappropriate jokes slide in the name of keeping the peace. You handle them calmly but firmly, creating a climate where those around you know that crossing the line won't go unnoticed. This not only stops disrespect from growing, but also sets a tone that benefits every interaction you have. People are more mindful, more thoughtful, and more careful with their words because they know you notice everything. When you maintain self-respect in relationships, you avoid the trap of over-giving to earn approval. You stop pouring endlessly into people who don't reciprocate, and you measure closeness by balance, not sacrifice. You no longer confuse constant availability with loyalty, and you don't try to buy respect with effort. This makes your presence more valuable because it's not given out cheaply. People who genuinely appreciate you will rise to meet your level, while those who only took advantage of you will quietly drift away. Either way, you end up surrounded by healthier, more respectful connections. When you protect your independence, both physical and mental, you send the clearest possible signal that you can't be controlled. You make your own decisions, you live by your own principles, and you have the ability to walk away from any situation that doesn't align with them. This freedom gives you leverage in every interaction because people know they can't trap you or manipulate you into compliance. You're with them by choice and not necessity, and that choice is the foundation of genuine respect. Together, these boundaries form a complete picture of someone who knows their worth. And that's the key. Respect starts with you. If you don't believe in your own value, others won't either. If you don't enforce your own standards, others will lower them. If you don't stand firm when tested, others will keep pushing until you fall. Respect isn't given to those who are always agreeable or endlessly accommodating. It's given to those who balance kindness with strength, empathy with limits, and openness with self-protection. Living this way won't always be easy. There will be people who push back, test your boundaries, or try to make you feel guilty for enforcing them. There will be moments when you question yourself, wondering if you're being too strict or too guarded. But the alternative, living without boundaries, is far more costly. Without them, you invite disrespect into your life in small, constant doses until it becomes the norm. You drain yourself for people who don't appreciate it. You lose time to situations that don't matter, and you silence yourself when you should speak. It's also important to understand that respect and likability are not the same. You might lose a few people along the way who preferred the version of you that bent to their will. But what you gain is far greater. You attract people who see you as an equal, who value your time, who handle you with care, and who know that your presence is earned, not owed. Those relationships are richer, stronger, and far more fulfilling because they're built on mutual regard instead of convenience. Over time, living with strong boundaries becomes second nature. You no longer have to consciously think about how to respond to lateness, disrespect, or attempts at control. Your actions and energy speak for you. People sense your standards before you even articulate them, and that unspoken reputation works in your favor. You stop chasing respect because it starts coming to you naturally. Ultimately, earning respect isn't about winning approval or proving yourself to anyone. It's about living in alignment with your own principles and refusing to compromise them for temporary comfort or validation. It's about being able to look at yourself at the end of the day and know that you didn't betray your own standards just to make someone else happy. That kind of self-respect radiates outward, and it's impossible for others to ignore. When you stand firmly in who you are, value your time, protect your emotional space, address disrespect early, maintain balance in relationships, and guard your independence, you become someone who doesn't have to ask for respect. You embody it. And the people who understand its worth will give it freely, not out of obligation, but because they know that they're in the presence of someone who demands it without ever saying a word.